Hello, Gemini, and welcome to your 2019 energy forecast, reading, overview, whatever you would like to call it. I'm Princess India. If you're new, hello, welcome, new subscriber. If you've been here for a minute, how you doing, boo? Did you miss me? Because I missed your face. You know what I'm saying? But everything that you need to know is in the description box below. All of my social media, how to contact me, and all that other good preliminary stuff. But anywho, we're going to jump into the reading because I want to keep these pretty short because there was a little mini battle royale. A lot of the explanations for why you guys didn't want 2019 forecast, I dig them because, you know, I'm just not in the business of wanting to know what's going on in my life for the entire year. But I'm just pretty much going to look at different little influences. So pretty much not really so much where we're coming from or where we're going to, but just really looking at like your overall energy for the year, kind of like your power move, right? Any subconscious influences and the things that you guys are going to come into the awareness of this year. So Spirit, please give me clear and direct guidance for my Gemini Spirit, anything that's going to assist them on their journey, anything that's going to assist them in evolving and growing and manifesting their highest good for their lives. I ask that that be revealed in this reading. And of course, as always, I thank you in advance, Spirit. And we're done it. We're doing it, done it. Dagnabbit. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. And this is my, what is this? My Psychic Tarot Oracle deck thing. And I just pulled all the major arcanas out because all of the major arcanas in any tarot deck, they're kind of like those unavoidable spiritual lessons, like, you know, the whole journey of the Fool and whatnot. So I just pulled those out. So, good vibes. Nothing to worry about if you're nervous. All right. So, overall energy for the year is the Hanged Man. So, the thing that's of utmost importance for Gemini in 2019 is a couple of things I'm hearing here. Okay. Where's my amethyst? Let's get this going. Okay. First and foremost, anything that you're approaching this year, ensure that you offer yourself the gift of another perspective. So, in other words, whenever you find yourself in a situation that may seem impossible, so there may be things that you face where you're kind of backed into a corner, the thing that Spirit is trying to bring out of you in so many words is to pause, to trust, and to take another perspective or attempt to see another perspective. If that's impossible, not necessarily impossible, but if you feel as if that's not possible, the thing is to trust Spirit. Know that you are not at the will of life, but life is always happening in your benefit, and to trust and wait on divine timing in so many words. So if it's not possible, if you're feeling kind of so overwhelmed to where it's very difficult to see what the lesson could be in this, which usually does not happen in the present, it's like sometimes we kind of try to tell ourselves that to feel better. It's like, oh, Spirit must be trying to teach me this, right? So it's just kind of one of those things where it's to pause and take a step back and to accept is really what the deliverance key in all of this is. When you find yourself in an impossible situation, it's to accept, not to accept defeat, not to accept maltreatment, but to say, okay, my back is against the wall, but I trust everything is working out for my highest good, right? So what are we doing here? Like, do I need to wait? Do I need to be patient? It's more or less learning to surrender to the now, right? As opposed to trying to force things when, you know, there may not be a way to move forward. Because the whole lesson to learn in this is that sometimes there's a need to be patient and to wait so that things can align the way that you want it to. So say hypothetically, if, you know, you apply for a job and you've done all that you literally could do, and now you're just waiting to hear back from the company, as opposed to stressing and worrying, is surrendering to the moment of saying, I've done all that I can do in this situation. And, you know, not fearing the worst or thinking about in the past when things didn't work out. It's more or less just surrendering to the present moment, which within itself is a challenge, right? So the whole key is for the theme of 2019 is going to be you guys surrendering, learning to surrender to the moment, learning to surrender to divine timing, learning to find an alternate perspective and trusting spirit overall in things that are unfolding in your life. Next, we have the Heal card. So the whole key is here is more or less any chains that bind, right? Anything that is a limiting belief system, that's a limiting perspective, which is why a change of perspective or seeing things from another perspective would be helpful, is to release you from bondage. Because this, of course, is the Tower card. But it's more or less anything that, these are like defense mechanisms I'm hearing. So, okay, that's interesting. Interesting. So, the challenge that's going to be overcome for Gemini, and this is something that's deep-rooted, it's almost as if the deep-rooted fear is not knowing. It's being in the present, not knowing. It's being defenseless in the sense of, wow, so this is almost like Spirit having you guys, like, confront your, I'm saying you guys, I'm a Gemini rising dagnabbit, but, facing your greatest fear in the sense of you're very familiar with dwelling in the past and being bound to it. You're very familiar with fearing the future and being bound to that fear of the what if. But it's almost like your power in your dominion, like an inner strength, like that inner lion, is going to be brought out and you sitting in a place that you're not familiar with, which is the present. So if you think of the hangman position, it's not swinging to try to free yourself. It's literally surrendering to that position. It's finding peace in the unknown, finding peace in the not knowing, and to dispel all depression from the past, all fear and anxiousness from the future, and surrendering to the present moment. And that's what gives you dominion over your situation. So as opposed to it being towers becoming a state of, like happenstance, like things that come upon you and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was going to happen. Oh no, the tower's crumbling. It's instead going to be you guys breaking the towers. It's so in this space, wow, this is deep. So it's almost like the hanged man position, doing what seems counterintuitive, what seems counterproductive, because it's almost like the way of living up to this moment, up to this year, has been trying to, run around like a chicken with its head cut off to prevent the tower from falling. It's like seeing things crumbling and getting duct tape and like taping bricks back and things of the sort. But instead, Spirit is leading you guys into a state to do the unfathomable, which is to surrender to the now and to do nothing and accomplish everything. And that in turn, instead of you feeling, which you guys may have felt up until this point, at the will of life, that things are happening to you, that people are coming into your life and they're breaking your towers down and these being shocks, you instead are going to be the earthquake and the power that begins crumbling the towers. That is deep. Gemini, dagnabbit, son of a gun. So it's almost entering this space of power. It's like attuning with your higher self. And it's you proverbially moving mountains by the more that you guys align to this truth of who you are, the more that you surrender to the authentic self, the more that you surrender to the higher self, is the more that your external world will start to reflect and mirror your interior world. And that's going to look like towers crumbling, but it won't be a shock. It's almost as if you're standing, I don't know, in the middle of downtown and everything's crumbling around you and everyone's running around screaming and you're like smiling, whistling Dixie and things of the sort. Subconscious influences. We have the Emperor, or the lead card, and it was positioned in the reverse. So this is how I'm seeing this. It's more because, of course, anything that is in our subconscious mind, it's like old, outdated beliefs, things that we've internalized, or false truths that we've internalized before we were even able to vocally express ourselves, right? It can get that deep. But anyway, the subconscious belief has been one rooted in, as I said here, being at the will of life. It's the false core belief that life is happening to me and not for me, right? It's the false belief that I'm at the will of my experience, that for some, that I'm supposed to be dominated. So when it comes into like love and relationships, if you've had a history of dating people who were controlling, manipulative, had narky traits, things of the sort, all of those things were rooted in this false core belief of disempowerment. Either I'm not good enough, or I'm not qualified, or things like that don't happen to people like me. It's more or less with this, in this hanged man state, attuning to this power energy, so to speak. It's going to become clearer and clearer how you guys have had a tendency to disempower yourselves by projecting this false belief onto your reality, because that's in essence what it is. When we talk about like projection, and people are like, you're projecting whatever onto me, or even how I said before, with the quote that I put up, where I said, like, you block me, you block your blessings. That was a twin flame thing. There's a whole explanation on the community tab. But in that explanation from the video that quote came from, I was talking about how other people treat you says more about them than it does about you, right? But we have a tendency to internalize how other people are behaving, right? Because the truth of the matter is, what I'm doing, what you're doing, what everyone is doing is simply what we're doing, right? How I respond to what another person is doing says far more about me than it does about them, right? Because our words and our actions are like fruit, and we're like trees, right? So if you want to know what type of tree I am, look at my words, look at my actions. It tells you a great deal into my personhood as well as all of humanity, right? So when we talk about a subconscious core belief, that means that this is instantly an invisible pair of, glasses that I'm looking through that I'm not even aware that I'm wearing, that distorts my vision. And I'm trying not to get super deep into this, but in one way or another, none of us know what reality looks like, because we all have like this skewed perception of reality, and no one really knows what reality looks like, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, but it's like, I view life, you view life, we all view life through our subconscious processes. So when another person does their thing, they're acting out their pathology, I interpret another person's actions via whatever my, subconscious things are, right? So it's kind of like one of, because I'm trying to ground this to make this make sense. It's more or less like, simply put, if I'm feeling not good enough, I will draw, and this is like not just feeling it, but on a core level, I feel not good enough, right? I will draw people into my life, right? Like a magnet that will continuously make me feel what it is I believe about myself, right? So that's what my reality becomes. But you guys being in this state, which would seem, because if you think about the hanged man, he's upside down, right? That seems kind of ass backwards. But it's not, because it's you looking at life from a perspective that you've never looked at it before, and it's going to allow you to descend into the lower self and start to see the connections of how this false belief about yourself, your worth, or your value, how that's been showing up in your experiences. And it's now you having the opportunity to break this core belief. So this thing that's been running in the background, like this program that's been running in the background, that's been influencing your experiences, you're now gaining dominion over it because you see it now. You're seeing the ways that, wow, I didn't have boundaries and that person crossed my boundaries. Or I saw that red flag and I ignored it. You know what I mean? And that's how that person took advantage of me. So it's more or less you now sitting yourself in the director's chair of life and having dominion over your experience as opposed to feeling at the will of your experience, right? And then what's coming into you guys' awareness, confront. We're talking about shadows, people. That's exactly what I was saying here. So it's confronting that inner child. But here's the thing. You know, when we talk about, and that's the moon card, by the way. So when we talk about confronting the inner child, it's like this isn't a process where you're going to have to figure out, like, how do I confront the inner child? Literally, this energy that you guys are in is primed and prepped for you to face the inner child. It's like, this is the person who's been whispering these lies behind everything. So, I don't know, guys. Like, the feeling that I'm feeling right now is so excited and so empowered because I almost see it as, like, you standing here going through life, and it's like, so you're in this hangman state, and all of a sudden you hear this little voice behind you, I heard you were looking for me. And then you turn around and you're like, I am. Person, who's the voice in my head that tells me I'm not good enough? I am good enough. Dagnabbit son of a gun, I said. You know what I'm saying? So it's more or less, this year is going to be an unwrapping and an unfolding. So it's like the more that your authentic self shows forth, the more that you attune to this vision of yourself, right? This highest vision that you've ever fathomed of yourself. The more that you attune to that, the more that you surrender to the moment, the more that you surrender to spirit, the more that you surrender to flow, the more that you surrender to joy, right? Because God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, can only be found in the present moment. Spirit only exists in the present, right? Because this is the only moment that we have to co-create with spirit. We cannot co-create in the past. We cannot co-create in the future because it's not here yet. And our futures are merely a byproduct of what it is that we're creating in this present moment. So the moment that you guys start to awaken to how much power you truly have in this present moment, because that's like the secret to life. I say the secret to life is, and the most overlooked thing, is our ability to choose. It's the greatest power that we possess as humans. And to know that that choice is exacted in this present moment, the moment that you realize that, you instantly gain dominion over yourself and your life and anything that you've been battling against, right? So, all in all, you guys staying in this present moment is how each lie starts to unravel. You know what I mean? When you don't allow yourself to get pulled back into the past, when you don't allow yourself to get pulled into the future, you start seeing things clearly and for what they are. So it's almost like the scales are starting to fall from your eyes, and you attune to the energy of non-attachment. You understand, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you really understand how much dominion and power that you have over your life and yourself. And it's almost like I'm saying this, not that this all happens at once, but it's more or less the more time you spend in the present moment is how each one of these things will start to appear to you. So the longer that you spend in that moment of flow with spirit, it's like all of these things will start to be revealed to you. And suddenly the key signifier of your breakthrough, so to speak, is going to be when you start to see the connection between, because it may not be this, well, I'm going to say for everyone, it's not going to be the specific examples that I gave, but at the heart of the subconscious process is feeling disempowered. It's you feeling at the will of life is what this subconscious process is. But, you know, the awareness that's going to come from you guys being in this present moment, it's almost like the equivalent of, you know, having a proverbial monster in your closet. Like, you know, if you have stuff in your closet and it looks like a monster, like when you were a kid, and you turn the light on and it's like an umbrella and a coat, it's kind of like that. It's like this thing that you've been fearing facing is not going to be as big as you thought. You know what I mean? But it's almost like this state you guys have tried to achieve was never about doing. It was more about being. And that's the whole lesson that's going to be learned in 2019. I'm mad that it took me, 19 minutes to get that out. I hope that makes sense, Gemini. But I'm going to pick a card for you guys of a mantra that, and I would suggest to write this down because some of them are kind of like, what do you call it? I don't know what the word would be for that. It's like some of them are kind of mentally challenging to where it's like a conundrum, so to speak. So for some of them, you may have to read it and reread it a couple times. So I would definitely say to write it down and to kind of meditate on it. So I would say this is like your first meditation mantra of 2019 and something that you can return to as often as you need to. You know what I'm saying? I hope that made sense. I know y'all are going to let me know in the comments if it did. But see, that wasn't that bad. So, Spirit, can I get one card for Geminis? A 2019 mantra for them, please, Spirit. These are all universal truths. So that's why I say that, because some of them are kind of like riddles, like existential riddles, if that makes sense. Y'all know I gotta be extra. Thank you, Spirit, for giving them one. Okay. Get you a pen and your paper ready. I don't know why this eye looks so weird. Anyway. Your mind is right now filled with old thoughts. Not only old thoughts, but mostly someone else's old thoughts. It's important now, it's time now to change your mind about some things. This is what evolution is all about. Dag-nabbit, son of a gun, I said. That is it. Maybe I should just pull one of these and let this be the 2019 energy. Because what took me 19 minutes to say, this spiritual truth said in a sentence. Your mind is right now filled with old thoughts. Not only old thoughts, but mostly someone else's old thoughts. It's important now. It's time now to change your mind about some things. This is what evolution is all about. So true. It's simply about a change of mind. Making decisions more in alignment with who I see myself to be. The truth of who I see myself to be. And in order to do that, it's understanding the truth of who I am on a soul level. Not who my human is, not what my experiences say, but the part of me that is infinite, that has dominion over all things, right? It's attuning to that, identifying with that, and making decisions that are in alignment with that. So that has been your 2019 forecast, Gemini. Let me know in the comments what you think. Until your January reading, which is probably going to come out between today or tomorrow, I love your freaking face. Deuces.